Dad, she can't buy cotton candy for her son. Millionaire moves a single mother to tears. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon in Central Park, New York. The last leaves of autumn drifted through the golden air, sunlight spilling softly across the still water of the lake. Among the crowd, Ethan Miller, 38, a gifted architect and CEO of a renowned design firm, walked slowly beside his 7-year-old daughter, Lily. 3 years had passed since he lost his wife, the woman he had loved more than life itself. Though success surrounded him, an emptiness lingered in his eyes, the kind that wealth could never fill and time could never heal. Lily was the only light left in his world. She skipped between the benches, clutching a balloon in one hand, glancing back at her father with a smile so innocent that it warmed his heart, and broke it at the same time. Across the park, Sofia Alvarez, 30, held the tiny hand of her son, Rowan, 5 years old. Once an office assistant, she had lost her job when her company downsized. Now she struggled to make rent, to pay for food, for medicine, yet she refused to let despair show. Every day she smiled for her son, the little boy who still believed the world was kind, even when theirs was falling apart. They were strangers, two souls living in opposite worlds. And yet destiny had its own quiet plan. That afternoon, the wind in Central Park drifted gently through the bare branches, carrying the faint sweetness of caramel sugar from a cotton candy stand near the fountain. Ethan and Lily strolled slowly along the stone path, the sound of children's laughter echoing through the air. Lily ran a few steps ahead, her white dress fluttering in the breeze. "Daddy, look! Cotton candy!" she squealed, her voice full of delight. Ethan smiled softly, though a shadow crossed his eyes. He nodded, reaching for his wallet. These little things used to be family traditions. But now, every time Lily called him Daddy, his heart tightened. Half of his life still belonged to the past. As they approached the stand, Lily suddenly stopped. Just a few feet away, a small boy was staring longingly at the fluffy clouds of pink sugar hanging in clear bags. He didn't say a word, just clutched his mother's hand. The woman, Sophia, looked weary, her thin shoulders trembling beneath a worn coat. She bent down, whispered something to her son, but he shook his head, his eyes still locked on the candy. "Daddy," Lily tugged on his sleeve, "that boy wants one, but his mom can't buy it." That one sentence pierced through the armor Ethan had built around his heart for the past 3 years. He followed Lily's gaze and saw Sophia's struggle, the way she opened her wallet to reveal only a few coins, then closed it again, forcing a fragile smile for her son. Ethan looked down at Lily, her eyes wide with expectation. She didn't need to say more. He exhaled quietly and smiled. "You think we should help them, huh?" "Yes," Lily said firmly. Ethan walked up to the cotton candy stand. The vendor, an elderly Italian man with a kind smile, looked up. "2 of the biggest ones, please. 1 pink, 1 blue," Ethan said. "Coming right up," the man replied, twirling a wooden stick in the spinning sugar, shaping clouds of sweetness. Ethan handed the pink one to Lily. "You want to give the other one to the boy?" Lily nodded, holding the oversized candy tightly and stepping forward. Sophia looked up as the little girl approached. Lily smiled, her voice light as sunshine. "This one's for you. My dad says sharing makes everything sweeter." Rowan's eyes widened as he glanced up at his mother. Sophia froze, her throat tightening. "Oh, no, sweetheart. You don't have to." "Please," Ethan said gently, his voice warm and deep. He had stepped closer now, his eyes kind. "No reason to say no to a small piece of happiness, right?" Sophia bit her lip, tears glimmering in her eyes. She nodded, resting a trembling hand on her son's shoulder. Rowan accepted the cotton candy, cradling it like treasure. "Thank you, sir," he whispered, his voice trembling. It was such a simple moment, so brief, yet something inside Ethan shifted. When he saw the quiet tear slip down Sophia's cheek, a warmth long buried began to stir within him. "Have a lovely afternoon," he said. Sophia managed a shaky smile and nodded. Lily took his hand, and they began to walk away. But Ethan turned back once more just to see Sophia kneel and wrap her arms around her son, the boy's smile glowing through a mouthful of pink sugar. People often say that time heals everything, but for Sophia, time only made her realize that the wound of betrayal never truly heals. Her ex-husband, Michael, had once been a sports teacher at a private school. On their wedding day, Sophia believed she had chosen the right man, warm, witty, and the one who used to say, "As long as I have you and our child, I need nothing else." But when Sophia was 6 months pregnant with Rowan, Michael began to change. He came home later, lied more often, and the way he looked at her was no longer the same. One day, Sophia discovered the truth. Michael had been unfaithful, not with a stranger, but with a wealthy woman, the mother of one of his students. She was 10 years older than him, widowed, and lived in a luxurious penthouse in the heart of Manhattan. Sophia confronted him in tears, but Michael only replied coldly, "I'm tired of being poor, Sophia. I'm tired of struggling while others live easily. With her, I can finally have the life I deserve." Those words felt like a knife straight through her heart. She didn't beg him to stay, only watched him walk out the door with a few clothes and the watch she had given him on their wedding day. From that day on, Sophia became both father and mother to Rowan. She took every job she could, cleaning, babysitting, waiting tables, just to make sure her son never went hungry, never lacked love. She never spoke ill of Rowan's father, only told him, "Your dad is far away, working very hard." But children always sense more than we think. Rowan didn't ask questions. He simply went quiet every time he saw other kids being picked up by their dads after school. Now, under the golden afternoon sunlight, Sophia wondered if she could ever give her son a normal childhood. She wasn't afraid of poverty. She was afraid Rowan would grow up believing he was unloved. As they walked past the lake, a gentle breeze lifted her hair. She looked up, inhaling the scent of grass and trees, trying to find a moment of peace in the crowd. 4 days had passed since that afternoon, yet Ethan couldn't stop thinking about the woman from the park, the soft, tired smile, the tear that had fallen when her son received that cotton candy. He didn't know why that memory lingered, humming in the back of his mind like a quiet melody. On Thursday morning, Ethan had a business meeting at a small café in Manhattan. The place was tucked on a quiet corner, with sunlight spilling through the tall windows onto dark wooden tables. The scent of roasted coffee filled the air. He arrived 15 minutes early, ordered an Americano, and sat by the window. He flipped through his project papers, but his thoughts wandered elsewhere. His life, perfect in the eyes of others, still felt incomplete, missing something invisible. Maybe warmth? Maybe faith? Then a woman's voice broke through the quiet. "Please, I really need this job. I can start tomorrow if you'll let me." The voice? It was familiar enough to make Ethan look up instantly. Standing at the counter was Sofia Alvarez. She wore a white blouse, the edges slightly frayed, her dark hair tied neatly at the back. Her face looked tired, yet her eyes held honesty and dignity. She was speaking to the cafe owner, a middle-aged woman who looked genuinely sorry. "I'm really sorry," the owner said, "but I already have enough staff, and I need someone who can stay for the evening shifts." "I can work evenings," Sophia said quickly, desperation breaking through her voice. "It's just that I have a small son, but I can figure something out." The owner sighed. "If you have a child, it'll be difficult. I need someone flexible with hours." Sophia lowered her gaze, clutching the strap of her worn purse. "I understand. Thank you anyway." She turned to leave, her shoulders heavy, her steps slow. Ethan watched her, that same ache in his chest from the park returning, Before he even realized, he was already standing. "Excuse me," he called out softly. Sophia froze and turned around. The moment their eyes met, time seemed to pause. "You," she stammered, "you're the man from the park." Ethan smiled gently, stepping closer. "I remember you. And your son." A faint blush rose on Sophia's cheeks. "I didn't expect to see you again. I never even thanked you for what you did that day." "There's no need," Ethan said warmly. "I just did what anyone would have done." She shook her head. "No, not everyone would have." Ethan gestured toward his table. She hesitated, then nodded. He ordered another cappuccino and a slice of pastry. Sophia tried to refuse, but the soft growl from her stomach betrayed her. "You're looking for work?" Ethan asked gently. Sophia nodded. "It's been over 2 months. I've taken small jobs here and there, but with a child, it's complicated." Ethan listened quietly, his eyes calm and kind. After a moment, he spoke. "I need help around the house, someone I can trust, to cook, clean, and help with my daughter. If you'd like, I'd be happy to hire you." Sophia blinked, unsure if she'd heard right. "You're serious?" "Completely," Ethan said with a small smile. "I have a 7-year-old daughter. She needs someone patient and warm. I think you'd be perfect." Sophia lowered her head, her voice trembling. "I don't want to take charity." "This isn't charity," Ethan replied gently but firmly. "It's a job. You'll work, I'll pay. Simple as that. And you can live there with your son. My house has more space than I need." Those words broke something inside her. Tears filled Sophia's eyes, and she tried to wipe them away, but they kept coming. "Thank you," she whispered. I don't even know what to say." Ethan smiled softly. "You don't have to say anything. Maybe God is giving us both a second chance." For a moment, they just sat there in silence. Outside, the first snow of winter began to fall, light and delicate, as if heaven itself was blessing this unexpected meeting. Sometimes, fate doesn't just bring pain. Sometimes, it brings redemption, disguised as a stranger. On Monday morning, a thin layer of snow covered the rooftops of the Upper West Side. The wind brushed softly through the quiet streets, carrying the chill of winter's breath. In front of a black iron gate lined with maple trees, Sophia stood with her son Rowan, gripping the handle of her worn suitcase. Her heart pounded fast beneath her coat. "Rowan," she whispered, bending down to him, "remember to say thank you and be polite, okay?" Rowan nodded, his eyes wide with both excitement and fear. "Mom, is this our house?" "Not yet," Sophia smiled faintly. "But maybe. It's a new beginning." She pressed the doorbell. The gate opened slowly, revealing Ethan, wearing a soft gray sweater and a welcoming smile. "Good morning," he said warmly. "Come in. It's much warmer inside." Sophia followed him down the stone path, her pulse quickening with every step. The townhouse was even more beautiful than she imagined. 2 stories of red brick and wide windows full of light. Yet what struck her most was the silence. It wasn't unpleasant, but it was the kind of quiet that spoke of absence, not peace. "This is your room," Ethan said, opening a door on the first floor. "Private bathroom, new bed. If you need anything, just let me know." Sophia stepped in and froze. The room was bright and clean, a vase of fresh flowers placed carefully on the nightstand. She could hardly believe it was meant for her. Ethan smiled softly, then opened the next door. "And this one's for Rowan." Rowan's eyes widened. The room was painted light blue, with a small bed, a desk, and an empty bookshelf. He stood still for a moment, then turned to his mother. "Mom, is this really my room?" Sophia nodded, her eyes glistening. "Yes, sweetheart, it's yours." Rowan ran around, laughing, touching the walls, the bed, the dresser, as if making sure it was real. Ethan leaned on the doorway, smiling. "Looks like he likes it." "You have no idea what this means to us," Sophia whispered. "We've never had anything like this." Ethan replied quietly, "Sometimes people just need a place to start over, and I think this house does too." That afternoon, Lily came home from school. She rushed in, spotting Sophia and Rowan unpacking in the kitchen. "Do you remember her?" Ethan asked. "The lady from the park, with the cotton candy," Lily exclaimed. "And this is the boy, right?" Sophia laughed softly. "Yes, this is Rowan." "Want to play?" Lily asked instantly, holding out a colorful box of Legos. Rowan glanced at his mother. Sophia nodded, and he smiled shyly before following Lily out of the room. Ethan watched them from the living room as their laughter echoed through the house. Sophia stood nearby, a dish towel still in her hand, but for the first time in years, her shoulders relaxed, her lips curved into a real smile. The following days felt like a dream. Sophia woke up early to make breakfast, the smell of coffee and toasted bread filling the air. Ethan came downstairs in his usual tailored suit, but now his expression seemed softer, lighter. He often stayed a few minutes to eat with them before heading to work. Rowan and Lily became inseparable. They painted, played chess, chased each other in the small backyard. One afternoon, while folding laundry, Sophia paused, hearing the sound of their laughter through the open window. For the first time, she realized she was truly smiling. But new beginnings weren't without fear. That evening, while clearing the dishes, Sophia accidentally dropped a glass. The sharp crash startled her, and she froze, trembling. "I'm sorry," she stammered, kneeling to pick up the pieces. Ethan walked over and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's all right, Sophia. It's just a glass." His voice was calm, without a hint of anger. But to Sophia, those simple words meant everything. It had been so long since anyone had spoken to her with kindness. That night, as she tucked Rowan into bed, he whispered, "Mom, can we stay here forever?" Sophia paused, her throat tightening. "I don't know, my love, but I'll do everything I can to make sure we can." Outside, the snow began to fall again. Inside, the warm light bathed the walls in gold. Sophia sat quietly by the window, her heart full of gratitude. She didn't know what the future would bring, but deep inside, she knew. This was where hope began to bloom. Time passed faster than Sophia expected. It had been over a month since she and Rowan moved into Ethan's house. The once silent home, that used to echo with emptiness, was now filled with voices, laughter, and the patter of tiny feet running down the halls. Sophia worked tirelessly, cleaning, cooking, doing laundry. But for the first time, she didn't feel exhausted. Each morning, when she woke to Rowan's cheerful, "Mom, I'm hungry," or Lily's chatter about school, she felt her heart bloom with a joy she hadn't known for years. Ethan changed too. He began leaving the office earlier, often bringing small gifts for the kids, chocolate pastries, books, or simply 2 cups of hot cocoa on a cold night. But the greatest thing he brought home was warmth, something the house hadn't known in 3 long years. One Friday evening, after the children had gone to bed, Sophia was tidying the living room when Ethan walked in, holding 2 cups of tea. "You've worked all day," he said, setting 1 cup in front of her. "You should rest a little." Sophia smiled softly. "Thank you, but I'm used to it. I can't sit still when there's work left." Ethan sat across from her, his voice calm and low. "Sometimes resting is part of the work." They both laughed, a small, warm sound that filled the quiet air. The soft light reflected in Ethan's eyes, deep and kind. "Did you ever think," Sophia asked gently, That life would stay this way forever? Just work and come home to an empty house? Ethan paused, his voice faint but honest. After my wife passed, I thought the rest of me died with her. I existed, but I didn't live. And then he looked at her. You and Rowan came along, and suddenly this house didn't feel so sad anymore. Sophia lowered her gaze, pretending to stir her tea to hide her smile. You're a good man, Ethan. He shook his head lightly. No, just a man learning how to live again. One morning, while Ethan took Lily to school, Sophia watched from the window. The sunlight touched his dark brown hair, and she realized she was beginning to care for him more than she intended. That afternoon, she heard a soft cry from upstairs. She ran up to find Lily sitting on the stairs, a scrape on her knee. I fell, the girl whimpered, tears glistening. Sophia knelt down, wrapping her arms gently around her. It's okay, sweetheart. Just a little scratch. She cleaned the wound, then kissed it softly. There. The magic kiss always works. Lily blinked at her through tears. You're like my mom. Sophia froze. All she could do was hug the little girl tighter, her own eyes shining. And you're like my daughter Lily. That night, Lily told Ethan everything. Daddy, Miss Sophia has magic. She kissed my knee and it stopped hurting. Ethan chuckled, glancing at Sophia with gratitude. Thank you for taking care of her. It's nothing, she murmured, though her heart pounded fast. The weeks that followed brought them even closer. They shared dinners, talked about work, about the children, about life. Small things Ethan had once forgotten how to enjoy. One evening, after the kids were asleep, Sophia was washing dishes when Ethan appeared with a thick coat in his hands. The stars are out, he said. Would you like to join me on the porch for some coffee? She hesitated, then nodded. They sat side by side beneath the soft glow of the porch light, their breath visible in the cool February air. You know, Sophia began, I used to hate nights. When the house was dark and quiet, I felt so small, so alone. But here, she paused, meeting his eyes. Here, I feel safe. Ethan turned to her, his gaze warm as candlelight. That's exactly what you've brought back into my life. A gentle silence followed, filled only by the whisper of the wind and the faint twinkle of stars. For the first time, Sophia didn't feel like an employee. She felt like she belonged, like she was part of something real. And in Ethan's heart, something long buried began to stir again. The very thing he thought had died with his wife. The quiet, unexpected rebirth of love. 3 months had passed since Sophia and Rowan moved in with Ethan and Lily. The house that once echoed with silence had become a home, full of laughter, the smell of warm food, and the gentle noise of life returning. Ethan was no longer the quiet, lonely man Sophia had first met. He smiled more, joked sometimes, even played with the kids after dinner. Sophia realized she loved the way his laughter filled the room. Soft, honest, and alive. One Sunday morning, Ethan appeared at the kitchen door while Sophia was making breakfast. Sophia, he said, I think we should go out today. She looked up, smiling. Go out? Yes, a little picnic at Central Park, where it all began. Sophia froze, surprise flickering in her eyes. You still remember that place? How could I forget? Ethan smiled. We owe that park everything. The day was unusually bright and warm for spring. Sunshine filtered through the trees, and the air carried the scent of new leaves. Sophia packed sandwiches, fruit and lemonade into a basket. Ethan drove, while Lily and Rowan sang in the back seat, laughing all the way. When they arrived at Central Park, Sophia's heart fluttered. The park looked the same. The open field, the trees swaying gently, children running free. And in the distance, she saw it. The cotton candy cart. Ethan chose a spot near the lake and spread out a checkered blanket. The kids ran off to play, their laughter echoing through the breeze. Sophia sat beside him, folding her hands over her lap. "It's strange," she said softly, watching the children. "A year ago, I sat right there, feeling completely lost, not knowing what would come next." "And now?" Ethan asked quietly. "Now I feel grateful." "For what?" "For miracles," she whispered. "And for someone who saw me when I thought I was invisible." Ethan looked at her for a long moment. The sunlight caught her hair, turning it golden at the edges. His heart ached, but not from sadness, from something gentler, deeper. "I thought my heart would stay frozen forever," he admitted. But then someone walked in, quietly, and brought light with her. Sophia smiled faintly. "That light isn't mine, Ethan. It's yours. You just forgot how to let it shine." They sat in silence, watching Lily and Rowan throw pebbles into the lake. The sound of their laughter mixed with the wind. It was so peaceful that Sophia almost feared breaking the spell. Then Ethan turned to her, his voice low. "Sophia, I don't know how to say this right, but I don't want to call this just a job anymore. You've done more than anyone could, not just for this house, but for me." She looked up. Their eyes met, and in that second, time stopped. Ethan reached for her hand, gently but firmly. "I don't want you to leave tomorrow or someday. I want you to stay, not because I need help, but because I need you." Tears welled in Sophia's eyes, sparkling in the sunlight. "I don't know if this is right," she whispered, "but I feel the same. I've tried not to. But every morning, seeing the kids laugh, I'm scared of the day I'll have to leave." "You won't," Ethan said firmly. "Not if you choose to stay." A soft breeze passed between them, carrying the scent of grass and laughter. In the distance, the old cotton candy vendor smiled and waved. Ethan stood up, disappeared for a moment, then returned holding 4 cotton candies, 2 pink, 2 blue. When he handed one to Sophia, she laughed through her tears. "You remembered?" "How could I forget?" He smiled. A single cotton candy changed everything. They sat together, holding their sweet clouds, watching their children play under the sun. "Thank you," Sophia whispered, "for believing in me, even when I had nothing." Ethan shook his head gently. "You had everything that mattered: courage, kindness, and a heart that makes people believe again." He reached out, brushing his fingers lightly over hers. No words were needed. Only the breeze, the warmth, and 2 souls who had finally found their way back. In the same park where, a year ago, 2 strangers had met over a piece of cotton candy. Central Park hadn't changed, but for them it had become the place where a new family began. That night, after they returned from Central Park, the children fell asleep quickly. Rowan hugged his new teddy bear, while Lily giggled under her blanket, still talking about the magic cotton candy. The house grew quiet again, a peaceful, golden kind of silence, with only the sound of the wind brushing gently through the garden trees. Sophia was rinsing the last few cups when Ethan walked into the kitchen, holding 2 mugs of hot cocoa. "Are the kids asleep?" he asked. "Yes," she smiled softly. "They had such a wonderful day." "So did I," he said quietly, placing the mugs on the counter. "It's been a long time since I felt this kind of peace." They stood there for a moment, stirring their cocoa in silence. Then Ethan spoke again. "Come outside with me for a bit?" Sophia hesitated, then nodded. They stepped out onto the porch. The night air was cool and clean, the spring sky full of stars. The cherry blossoms in the garden swayed gently, filling the air with sweetness. Ethan looked up. "When I was younger, my wife and I used to count the stars together. After she passed, I stopped looking at the sky. It felt empty." Sophia said nothing, letting the quiet speak for her. But tonight, he continued, it doesn't feel empty anymore. She turned toward him, the porch light soft on his face. Why not? She asked softly. He met her eyes. Because you're here. Sophia froze. Her heart skipped a beat. Ethan, you don't have to say anything, he interrupted gently. I'm not saying this to burden you. I just want you to know, you've given my life back something I thought I'd lost forever. Faith and family. Tears welled in Sophia's eyes. I don't know if I deserve those words, she whispered. I'm just a woman who's been trying to survive. Ethan took a step closer, the distance between them closing like the final note of a song. No, Sophia, he said softly. You didn't just survive. You taught me, and the kids, how to live again. She looked up at him, their eyes locking. Two rivers meeting at last in the same sea. He lifted his hand and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. Did you know, he said, I used to believe love only came once in a lifetime. But now I think sometimes God sends it back when you're brave enough to open your heart again. Sophia smiled through her tears. Are you saying? I'm saying I love you, Ethan said simply. His voice melted into the night. Not because you replaced anyone, but because you're you. Because you make everything feel right again. Sophia didn't answer right away. She stepped closer, placed her hand over his heart, feeling it beat, fast and real. Ethan, she whispered, I was afraid to love again too. But maybe, when God brings two broken souls together, it's because He knows they're meant to heal each other. He smiled and leaned forward, pressing a tender kiss to her forehead, gentle, patient, filled with quiet promise. Above them, a single shooting star crossed the sky, leaving behind a silver trail. Do you believe in wishes? Sophia asked softly. I do, Ethan said, still gazing upward. And I just wished that we never forget this night. They stood there for a long while, saying nothing more. Only the sound of the wind, the rhythm of their hearts, and the kind of silence that feels like home. The next morning, sunlight filtered softly through the curtains, painting the white walls in gold. Sophia woke to the faint scent of coffee and the sound of birds outside the window. A new day, calm and kind. She sat up slowly, a peaceful warmth filling her chest. The night before, that quiet confession beneath the stars still lingered in her heart like a melody that wouldn't fade. When she walked downstairs, Ethan was already in the kitchen, wearing his familiar gray sweater. But something about him was different that morning, lighter, brighter, truly happy. Good morning, he said, his voice warm as sunlight. Good morning, Sophia replied, smiling softly. On the table sat 2 cups of coffee and a small vase of fresh flowers. You're up early, she said. I couldn't sleep, he admitted, smiling shyly. I kept thinking about last night, and I realized there's something I haven't said yet. Sophia tilted her head, surprised. What is it? Ethan stepped closer, stopping just a few feet away. From his pocket, he took out a small silver ring, simple but shining. Sophia, he said quietly, I can't promise life will always be easy, but I can promise to love you, on good days and on bad ones. I promise that my daughter will call you Mom, and your son will call me Dad. I promise that we'll be a family, not just today, but forever. Sophia froze. Tears filled her eyes, falling silently down her cheeks. Ethan, she whispered, are you proposing to me? He chuckled softly. I don't have candles or fancy words, just a heart that knows God brought us together for a reason. She laughed through her tears. You're terrible for making someone cry this early in the morning. As long as they're happy tears, he said, then knelt down, holding up the ring. Sofia Alvarez, will you marry me? Sophia nodded, unable to speak. She reached out her hand, and Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger before standing and wrapping her in his arms. In that embrace, every wound, every fear, every shadow of the past seemed to fade away. Just then, the sound of small footsteps echoed down the stairs. "Daddy, Miss Sophia, why are you crying?" Lily asked, eyes wide. Sophia laughed, wiping her cheeks. "Because I'm happy, sweetheart." "Mommy?" Rowan piped up. "So, does that mean Mr. Ethan's my dad now?" Ethan turned toward them, smiling softly. "Yes, it does. From now on, we're a family." The two children squealed and threw their arms around them. Sunlight poured through the window, bathing the four of them in golden light, as if heaven itself was blessing this moment. That morning needed no grand words, only warmth, only laughter, only the feeling that they had found what every heart longs for, a place to belong. Later that afternoon, the family returned to Central Park, the place where everything had begun. The old cotton candy vendor was still there. When he saw them, he smiled. "Ah," he said softly, "the two children from long ago. But now they've brought a whole family." Ethan bought 4 cotton candies, 2 pink, 2 blue. The old man handed them over with a nod and said, "Love isn't something you chase or own," the old man said with a smile. "It's something you give, and when you give it, it never runs out." Sophia squeezed Ethan's hand, smiling. Above them, clouds drifted slowly across the sky, the breeze warm and tender. Everything felt simple and perfect